Welcome to the deep dive. For, well, pretty much all of human history, death has felt like this great equalizer, right? An immutable endpoint.
Absolutely. That fixed arc of 70 years and 10, if you were lucky.
Exactly. It was just this unshakable truth. You saw it in poetry, theology explained it, doctors just accepted it. But something really profound has shifted, especially in this century. We're faced with this, honestly, audacious new possibility.
Which is?
That aging isn't immutable after all, that our cells, our tissues, our entire biology, well, they follow rules.
And rules can be rewritten. That's the revolutionary part.
Right. It's incredible.
It really is. And I think it's crucial for people to grasp that when we talk about radical longevity, we're not necessarily talking about, living forever like in the myths.
Okay, so what are we talking about?
It's more of a strategic goal, actually. It's about staying alive and healthy long enough to benefit from the next wave of medical and biological advancements.
Ah, I see. Like reaching the next checkpoint.
Precisely. That's the real core of longevity escape velocity. It's not about finding one single cure for death.
More like indefinite postponement.
Exactly. You accumulate enough extra time through today's breakthroughs to be around for tomorrow's even bigger ones. It can become this self-sustaining cycle.
So not static immortality, but a dynamic, constantly evolving extension of health and life.
You got it.
And that's exactly what we're diving into today. Our mission here is to really unpack a stack of fascinating sources on this truly revolutionary topic.
We'll be looking at how our thinking about life and death is changing.
Right. And the scientific milestones that got us here to this kind of precipice.
And maybe most importantly, why right now is the first time in history we can actually genuinely begin to think about taking control of our lifespan.
And this isn't just some academic exercise for you listening. Think of this as your shortcut to understanding a field that's already starting to redefine what it means to be human and, well, what it could mean for you.
Huh.
When I think about death, it just feels so deeply woven into the human story, like it's always been this fixed point.
It has. Across cultures, across millennia.
But you mentioned something fundamental changed, especially in the last century or so. What was that pivotal shift?
Well, it's really about how medicine itself transformed. For, thousands of years, it was largely a caretaking art.
Managing symptoms, providing comfort.
Exactly. But then it started evolving into an interventionist science. And that was a huge conceptual leap.
How so?
We began to see aging not just as this passive thing, getting old, but potentially as a treatable condition.
With symptoms, causes, maybe even cures?
Potentially, yes. That's the radical idea. It marked this massive shift away from just passively accepting aging towards actively, scientifically intervening in the process itself. And what's fascinating is, even though the science wasn't there, this yearning for more time to escape death's grip, it's ancient.
Like really ancient.
Oh, yeah. Think about the Epic of Gilgamesh. It's one of the oldest stories we have, maybe 4,000 years old.
Right. Gilgamesh searching for eternal life.
Exactly. He goes on this epic quest, finds the secret plant of immortality.
And then a snake steals it, right? Classic.
Classic indeed. And the story doesn't end with him conquering death. The lesson seems to be that the quest itself, that yearning for immortality, even if it fails, is just fundamentally human.
That story really hits home how deep this goes. And it wasn't just Mesopotamia, was it? This dream popped up everywhere.
Oh, absolutely. The forms varied, but the core desire was often there. Think of ancient Egypt.
Mummification, the pyramids.
Right. This whole culture geared towards ensuring physical continuity, maybe not on Earth forever, but definitely for the afterlife.
And India.
In India, you have the concept of Amrita, the nectar of immortality in the Rig Veda. Though interestingly, later, Hindu and Buddhist thought often valued spiritual liberation, moksha, over physical immortality.
So a different goal, but still grappling with life's limits.
Exactly. And then you have Chinese Taoist alchemists obsessively trying to create elixirs of life, often with tragic results using toxic stuff like mercury.
Yikes. Believing nature held the secret.
Precisely. Even monotheistic religions, Islam's paradise, Judaism's focus on legacy, they all grapple with unending existence in different ways.
It seems like there's this constant tension, this ambivalence.
That's a great word for it. There's this deep longing, but also this fear of what immortality might actually cost.
Yeah.
Loss of meaning, stagnation, regret.
These ancient stories really show we've been asking these big questions for a very, very long time. Okay, so the dream is ancient, but what about the actual reality? What was lifespan like for most of human history?
Brutally short, to be blunt. If you go back to the Paleolithic era, say 30,000 years ago, average life expectancy at birth was probably only 20 to 30 years.
Wow, so people really died at 30.
Not necessarily. That low average was dragged down massively by incredibly high childhood mortality, disease, starvation, accidents.
Right. If you made it past childhood.
Then you might well live to 50, maybe even 60, but often with a lot of suffering. Survival was the name of the game.
And did the agricultural revolution help about 10,000 years ago?
Paradoxically, not at first. Early farming societies actually had worse health initially.
Really?
Denser populations meant more infectious disease spread. But over the long haul, agriculture gave us stable food, settlements, writing, trade, the foundations for later medicine.
Okay, a necessary step, even if bumpy health-wise. And what about the classical eras? People like Galen, did things improve much?
Intellectually, yes, but lifespan, not dramatically. Average life expectancy stayed stubbornly low, maybe 30s or 40s, right through the Middle Ages.
And then the Black Death.
A horrific reminder of our vulnerability. Wiped out maybe a third of Europe in the 14th century. Just devastating.
But the Renaissance sparked something new.
It did. A renewed interest in science, anatomy, think Da Vinci's dissections. Observation started challenging superstition. But still, even in 17th century London, life expectancy at birth was only around 35.
Still mostly about basic survival.
Absolutely. The fight was just to make it through childhood and avoid plagues. The real game changer, what you could call the first big lifespan leap, didn't happen until the industrial era, the 19th century.
What changed then?
A whole cascade of things. Sanitation improved dramatically, access to clean water increased, and crucially, vaccines started appearing. Jenner's smallpox vaccine in 1796 was huge.
And then understanding germs.
Exactly. Pasteur and Koch brought us germ theory. Suddenly, we knew what caused many diseases. It wasn't just bad air.
So sanitation, vaccines, germ theory, what was the impact?
Massive. Between roughly 1850 and 1950, life expectancy in developed nations essentially doubled.
Doubled. From what to what?
From around 40 years to over 70. An unprecedented leap in human history.
Wow.
And because of that leap, for the very first time, people started living long enough that aging itself became the next big hurdle. The slow, seemingly inevitable decline became the problem to solve.
So avoiding early death was largely conquered, and aging became the new frontier. That's where the modern quest really kicks off.
Precisely. The 20th century truly earned the title the medical century. We saw incredibly rapid progress against acute illnesses.
Penicillin.
In 1928. Then the discovery of the DNA double helix in 53. Organ transplants in the 60s, the first test tube baby in 78.
Monumental advances.
Absolutely. Yet the fundamental biology of aging remained largely mysterious for much of that time.
It wasn't really studied systematically.
Not in the way it is now. It was only later in the 20th century that scientists really started digging into the actual mechanisms of aging, moving beyond just observation towards intervention. That shift ultimately gave rise to this revolutionary field we now call geroscience. And it's worth mentioning Jeanne Calment here, the French woman who lived to be 122 years and 164 days old.
The longest verified human lifespan, right?
Correct. Born in 1875, she lived through the invention of the telephone, the car, the internet. It's staggering.
A testament to what? Genetics? Luck?
Probably a mix of both.
Yeah.
Genetics, lifestyle, randomness. But her case kind of highlights the natural limits before geroscience really started intervening.
Which brings us right up to today, where the conversation isn't just about avoiding dying young from infections or accidents anymore.
No, it's much bigger.
It's about fundamentally challenging the notion that getting old has to mean decline, frailty, chronic disease.
Exactly. Questioning whether that decline is inevitable.
And that new perspective, that challenge, sets the stage perfectly for the incredible science we're about to dive into. Science suggesting that maybe, just maybe, aging itself could become optional.
That's the perfect transition,
Yeah.
because this leads directly into the concept of longevity escape velocity, or LEV. This is where the vision really takes flight.
Okay, LEV. Break that down for us.
The core idea is pretty mind-bending. It's the hypothetical point where medical science starts advancing so fast that for every year that passes chronologically, your remaining life expectancy increases by more than a year.
Wait, so your life expectancy actually starts running away from you, in a good way.
Exactly. It increases indefinitely. Imagine you're 60 today. Maybe current medicine gives you a decent shot, say 25%, of reaching 95.
Okay, seems reasonable.
But here's the LEV twist. By the time you actually reach 80, maybe new therapies have emerged. And these aren't just keeping you alive, they're actively reversing aspects of your biological age.
Rolling back the clock, essentially.
Right. If that trend happens fast enough, your statistical odds of dying from age-related causes just keep dropping and dropping indefinitely.
So you haven't cured death, but you've sort of outrun it.
You've achieved actuarial escape, as some call it. You've definitely postponed it. It might not be true of mortality yet, but feeling biologically 40 or 50 for decades longer,
That sounds pretty good.
that could plausibly be within reach around, say, 2035 to 2045, according to some projections. A 100-year healthy life might become the baseline.
And beyond that.
Well, if more radical tech like cellular reprogramming or even whole brain emulation pans out, then the very definition of living could shift dramatically.
Okay, that is genuinely mind-bending. Feeling 40 for decades. But how? What are the actual scientific pillars, the real technologies making this LEV idea even plausible?
All right, this is where it gets really exciting because it's not just one thing. It's a convergence of powerful forces, almost like the early internet or the space race in terms of potential impact.
Okay, like what?
First up, genomics and precision biology. We're not just reading DNA anymore. We're learning to write and edit it.
You mean tools like CRISPR?
Exactly. CRISPR, and now even more precise tools like prime editing, let us fix faulty genes with incredible accuracy. Gene therapy can deliver new instructions, and epigenetic reprogramming. We'll get into that. But it's showing signs of reversing aging markers in cells.
So biology is becoming like engineering.
That's the paradigm shift. We're starting to engineer biology.
Okay.
Designing mice that are disease-resistant and live longer. That's happening now with CRISPR. Then layer on AI and machine learning. This is huge. It's drastically accelerating drug discovery.
Cutting down timelines from years to months.
Right. Billions of dollars saved, potentially. But AI is doing more than that. It's changing how we define health itself, enabling predictive diagnostics and personalized treatments on a scale we couldn't imagine before.
Okay, AI speeds things up, genomics lets us edit. What about replacing worn-out parts?
Good question. That leads us to bioprinting and regenerative medicine. Think about growing new organs, prototype hearts, functional liver tissues, or using advanced stem cell therapies to rejuvenate damaged systems.
So you could literally replace parts that wear out with age.
That's the goal. It fundamentally reframes aging. And complementing all this is the rise of wearables, biosensors, and the quantified self.
Like smartwatches, glucose monitors.
Exactly. We're moving away from waiting for symptoms. Real-time data lets us monitor our health constantly, sometimes predicting diseases years, even decades, before they normally show up.
So it empowers you, the individual.
Absolutely. You become an active participant in managing your own longevity, not just a passive patient receiving treatment after the fact. And then there are the more, let's say, forward-looking areas. Nanorobotics, tiny machines for internal repair, still mostly theoretical but progressing. And cryonics or biostasis.
The ultimate backup plan. Freeze yourself for the future.
Kind of, yeah. Preserve the body, your brain, until future tech can revive and repair. But the real magic isn't any single one of these.
It's how they combine.
Exactly. It's the power of integration. Imagine, your wearables track your biological age indicators daily, and AI flags a rise in senescent zombie cells. A personalized senolytic cocktail is prescribed, maybe even 3D printed at home. You take it, inflammation drops, your aging trajectory slows down.
Which doesn't sound like science fiction anymore.
It's the likely future, preventive, personalized, real-time medicine. That's the foundation for a post-aging world.
Yeah.
And the 2020s, this decade, is really the beginning of the end for biological aging as we know it.
Wow.
You are alive right now at a true hinge point in human history.
A hinge of history. That's powerful. And it raises a really practical question. How do we even know if we're aging well, or if these interventions are actually working? You go to a high school reunion.
Ah, yes, the classic reunion test.
Exactly. Everyone's the same chronological age, but biologically, worlds apart. How do we measure that difference?
That reunion scenario perfectly illustrates the key distinction. Chronological age versus biological age.
Okay, chronological is just the calendar, right? How many birthdays you've had.
Right. Simple arithmetic, fixed, can't change it. But biological age, that's different.
It's more like the body's actual wear and tear.
Precisely. The mileage on your system. It reflects how well your body is functioning relative to your chronological age. It's influenced by everything: lifestyle, genetics, diet, stress, sleep, disease history.
So two 50-year-olds could be biologically decades apart.
Easily. Think marathon runner versus chronic smoker. Same birthday. Vastly different cellular health. And here's the absolutely revolutionary part.
What's that?
Biological age is modifiable.
You can change it.
Yes. And if we can measure it accurately, we can intervene to slow it down, stop it, or maybe even reverse it.